what we're talking about today is opal fossils and whether you should cut an opal fossil if it has color in it or not. Today we're talking about opal fossils and whether it's worthwhile cutting an opal fossil or whether you should leave the fossil as a fossil for its own certain value. So where are opal fossils are found? There's an ancient inland sea around the opal fields of Australia, and all of these opal fields are found on the edges of this ancient inland sea. Now that sea, wherever there's fossils, most of the fossils found are either crustaceans or shellfish or animals that live in water or near the water that have been buried underground through sediment. Once that organic matter or that shell or whatever breaks down into nothing, it leaves a cavity where the opal was, and then silica spheres drip down into that cavity and fill up and make the shape of that fossil. So for instance, we have shell fossils and yabby buttons and turtle bones and all sorts of things that did live near that water's edge that we can find as a fossil made from opal or turned into opal. So the question I'm answering today is, when an opal fossil has beautiful gem color in it, is it worth cutting that piece of opal that is a fossil into a gem because the color in it is so beautiful? And the answer to that is sometimes it is worth it. But if you're a scientist or a paleontologist and you were looking for fossils in an area, you would not even have in your mind the thought of cutting up a beautiful fossil because it comes from 110 million years ago, and it formed into one beautiful shape of the animal that was there that time ago. So you wouldn't really want to cut up that, but when you're an opal miner and you dig up something like a big shell this big and it's got beautiful gem color bar going right through it, the weighing up between the fossil with the color in it or a top beautiful gemstone is where you have to factor it all in, okay? Because this gemstone that you cut could possibly cut a 10 carat $100,000 stone, or you could sell this fossil without knowing what kind of a gem you're going to cut out of it as a fossil, but maybe not for nearly as much money as this beautiful cut gemstone. So that's the thing you need to weigh up. Fossils can be worth a lot of money, especially if they're a rare type like a shark's tooth or an animal tooth or a bone from a really rare animal or even a crocodile skull or something like that. They are worth a lot of money. So yes, if they were really a rare type of bone or fossil, I would not cut it. Even if it had beautiful color in it, I wouldn't cut it. Now there's some people that will cut a pipi shell or a bone and then, or they'll keep it and then they'll polish where the color is. Now this does nothing for the fossil. So if you polish off the features of that fossil just to see that color, then you're devaluing the fossil. You're not doing it any favors. Some people get those pipi shells, it's a perfect pipi, and they polish all of the surfaces so that it looks like a pipi shape, but it's just showing all the color. But all of the features and textures of this fossil are now disappeared. So realistically, you can't call it a fossil anymore because somebody could get a chunk of opal and carve a pipi shell out of it and say this is a pipi shell, which it isn't and it never was, but you made it into the shape of a pipi shell. Now, if that makes sense. So if you polish the features off a fossil, you devalue the fossil's value. You might increase the opal gemstone's value, but you'll decrease the fossil value. Today, I've got one little tiny piece. It's called a skin shell. It comes from Cooper Pedy, and it's one of the first pieces I will have cut in a video from Cooper Pedy. And skin shell is known to have very, very bright color. This piece has some nice features. It is quite thin and it's curved because it's only the shell of a clam, mollusk, or a pipi, or whatever it is. And inside it inside the skin there is some really nice colour. So I'm going to forego the fossil of this piece to go for the cut stone to see how good a colour comes out. Now, before you say don't cut it because it's a nice fossil, there's a lot of skin shell fossil around and it's not that rare. So the value of skin shell fossil as opposed to maybe what the colour could create is, in my mind, far greater. So let's get on the wheel and see how this one goes. Alrighty, here's our skin shell. You can see there's a very pretty colour in there, and you can see the features of the shell lines, the striations from the outer part of the shell, and it concaves like a shell should. And there's also a few little features on the inside. Now if you look at the edges where it's broken, you can see some really nice colour inside there. So what I'm thinking is that this skin shell is covering up some of the best colour. So I'm just going to take some of that skin off. It's getting quite thin down this end, so I could bring that in a little bit. We probably cut a stone around about there. So let's see how good it looks once we take its skin off. So as you can see, the colour's starting to look quite nice. There's a really nice beautiful flagstone pattern with a bit of floral in there as well. And it seems to be that it's been worthwhile cutting this piece from a fossil into a gemstone because that colour's really quite nice. I'm now trimming off the thinner side, so it really doesn't need to be there because it's too thin and can break. So I'm just cleaning it up to a decent shape. Even though the piece is quite thin, I can still put a bit of a dome on it. So I'll take it around the edges like I'm doing and just roll it over slightly. Now that I've shaped it, and yes, it's not an oval, into a decent sort of shape, I will go through the process of polishing her up to give it a nice price. Opal cutting secrets are so well kept within the opal cutting community. But there's a few techniques that are really special that help you cut your opal properly. And that is, if you're not holding your tongue right, you're not doing it right. Alright, well, now we've cut the stone, it's no longer considered a fossil at all because I've taken every bit of fossil feature off the piece. So now it's worth what the stone is worth. Now that's something that you need to evaluate, or even ask somebody else if you have a fossil, to find out whether it's actually worthwhile ruining a beautiful fossil, which is probably not the greatest idea in a real world. But when a stone is worth a lot more, and when it comes down to it in the world, things of monetary value, you will take the higher price. That's just the way life is. But this is a 3.32 carat Baroque shaped, not fossil anymore, but a white opal from Cooper Pedy. And it's worth around about the $1,200. Now it cost me $500 knowing it was a fossil with pretty colour. So I have made a profit by polishing it up and turning it from a fossil into a nice gemstone. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a clearer picture, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Just wait. Don't go through. No, you ruined my shot.